Well, good evening, Abernathy Antelope football fans. Once again, welcome here to Antelope Stadium. We are in Abernathy, Texas. It's the Abernathy Antelope pregame show. This is voice of the Antelopes, Ty Horsford, coming to you. A beautiful night here on a Wednesday night prior to Friday night showdown right here. It's homecoming 2019 for the Abernathy Antelopes, as it's a battle for antelope supremacy coming up Friday night here at the friendly confines, as the Post Gold Antelopes will come to town. A battle of 3-0 unbeaten teams here early on in the season, and really a matchup between two teams that have kind of created a little bit of a rivalry over the last few years, so it should be a fun one here tonight, or here coming up Friday night rather, from Antelope Stadium right here in Abernathy. And man, coming off of a thrilling week this past Friday. We talked about it on the pregame show last week, a matchup of two top 5 teams in their respective classes, and man oh man, did the Abernathy Antelopes come to play last Friday night, outlasting the Wellington Skyrockets 51-6. Abernathy, they looked like a machine, over 400 yards of total offense compared to just a little over 100 for a Wellington Skyrocket offense that was putting up big numbers coming in to the contest. But I tell you what, Abernathy hit them early and often, and the game was never close. The Antelope defense forced 6 Wellington turnovers. They took advantage of that on multiple occasions. They won the special teams battle. They piled up yards on offense. 51-6, the Abernathy Antelopes get the job done against the Wellington Skyrockets. You have over 2 100-yard rushers in that game. Quarterback Bryson Daly along with a running back Avery Clarkson. They both run for multiple touchdowns and over 100 yards. 17 carries for Daly, 13 for Clarkson. It was just a good night all the way around for the Abernathy Antelopes. And so Abernathy, fresh off of that emotional win, that exciting win, they enter into a week that can sometimes be dangerous. Sometimes coaches not a huge fan of homecoming week, but it is homecoming week here in Abernathy. It's the second home game of the 2019 regular season, as again the Post Gold Antelopes come into town this Friday night. A 7:30 kickoff with a 7:15 pregame show for us on the broadcast. Of course, we'll have the game in its entirety beginning at 7:30. Look forward to that, and we're here this evening to preview that matchup. A team that Abernathy over the last few years has become very, very kind of familiar with, if you will. These two teams that know each other well, and what you're going to have come Friday night is a battle of two strengths. You've got a rushing attack, a very solid rushing attack on the Post sideline, where they're averaging over 300 rushing yards per game against an Antelope defense that excels at stopping the run. We saw that against a similar offense in Wellington last week. They ran into the roadblock that is the Abernathy Antelope defense. So we'll see if that plays out again or if Post has something else up their sleeve. But we kind of talked about this becoming a little bit of a rivalry between these two teams, especially in recent years, going back to 2016. The Abernathy Antelopes have won 3 of the previous 4 meetings in this series. That includes the epic 24-21 regional semifinal win back in 2016, a season that saw Post beat Abernathy 21-0 in the season opener that year, only to see Abernathy in the regional semifinals come away with a 24-21 win over the Post Gold. Last year, these two teams met back in Post, and that was a game that Abernathy was also victorious, 35-9. So Abernathy, again, winners of 3 of the last 4, including last year's matchup, 35-9, as that game took place back in Post a year ago in week 4 of the season. But again, homecoming 2019 this Friday night as Post comes calling. Let's preview the Gold, if you will. Let's tell you kind of what you're going to expect when Post takes the field against our Antelopes on Friday night. So far in 2019, Post has looked really, really good. In fact, they've been better than good. Post has been dominant. The Gold outscoring their opponents on average by a count of 40 7. So they're putting up lots of points. They're also not giving up very many points. Again, a 40-7 on average margin through the first 3 weeks of the season, enrolling to a 3-0 start. It has not been close. They've got wins over Brownfield in the opener, 45-14. That was actually their closest game. They blanked Forsan 32-0, and then last week they just were all over the Roosevelt Eagles to the tune of 63-6. So a 3-0 start to the season for the Abernathy Antelopes. And again, we mentioned it a moment ago, their strength, they rely on a heavy running game due to the Post Bold Gold Antelopes. As they average about 318 yards per Friday night so far here in 2019 on the ground. They smash you up front, they hit you in the mouth, and they like to just try and run the ball over you. Kind of like Wellington. They don't run the wing T, but kind of like Wellington in the sense they're not flashy. They just try and maintain possessions, get first downs, and wear down opposing defenses. Over 400 yards a game of offense total for this Post team. So it's a team that's put up points and moved the ball effectively so far here in 2019. You've got junior running back Ashton Jefferson, a name you're going to hear a lot in that Bold Gold backfield, racking up 121 rushing yards per game. He scored 5 touchdowns to kind of pace this Post offense through the first 3 weeks of the football season. And you know, consistency is what you look for out of a running back. Post gets that out of Jefferson. Of the 3 games so far in 2019, he's gone over 100 yards rushing in each one of those contests. So 3 weeks, 3 games, and 3 100-yard plus rushing performances for Ashton Jefferson, the Bold Gold running back. And then also keep an eye on junior running back / cornerback on defense. You've got a guy in Nate McDaniel. He's worth keeping an eye on because he's averaging 93 yards a game on the ground offensively himself, but probably going to hear his name even more on the defensive side of the ball. Almost 8 tackles a game for Nate McDaniel to kind of pace that Post defense, again, that is only giving up 7 points per contest so far in the 2019 season. So a very stout defensive unit. Nate McDaniel kind of leading that charge, along with junior linebacker Sladen Pittman, a name you're going to hear a lot as well. Sladen Pittman, you'll likely see him a little bit at quarterback, but again, linebacker for the Bold Gold. He's all over the field. Sladen Pittman, a guy to keep an eye on. 33 tackles out of that linebacker slot so far in 2019. 5 of those for loss, and that's a big column when you look at defensive stats. Tackles for loss, and Pittman has 5 of them for the Bold Gold Antelopes of Post. So a very solid team in Post coming in here to Abernathy Antelope Stadium coming up Friday night, 7:30. It's homecoming for the Abernathy Antelopes. Post coming in here trying to play spoiler, but Abernathy looking to kind of just keep things rolling. It's been so far so good in the 2019 season for those Abernathy Antelopes. Let's switch gears just a little bit now, and let's talk about those mighty maroon Abernathy Antelopes. 3-0 on the 2019 season. They remain at number 4 in the state in the Dave Campbell's Texas high school football rankings, following that 51-6 rout of 4th-ranked Wellington. As impressive as a performance as you saw around the state last Friday night, but Abernathy stays at number 4 in the rankings. In addition to that big win last week over Wellington, you've seen the Antelopes knock off River Road in the opener to the tune of 33-12, and then a 42-9 victory on the road in Sundown. And so some good competition early on for the Antelopes, and Abernathy has made quick work of the opponents in the first 3 weeks of the season. And really, I think the thing you're encouraged by if you're an Antelope fan, just early in the year, you've gotten better each Friday night. You've made improvements from the week before, and that's what you're trying to see out of a ball club this time of year. The first few weeks of the season, trying to figure out what you have, getting used to some things, guys getting some action at the varsity level for the first time. And Abernathy, they're just getting better and better so far here in the early part of the season. That's exciting, as Abernathy on average outscoring their opponents to the tune of 42-9. So 40-7 on the side of Post, 42-9. The Abernathy Antelopes outscoring their opponents so far here in 2019. Offensively, Abernathy, they're really, really good. 424 yards of total offense each Friday night. That took a big bump this past Friday night against Wellington. You saw the Antelopes rack up over 460 yards of total offense in that contest. 310 yards on the ground per contest so far for the Antelopes as well. So guys, get that. You've got a team in Post averaging 318 yards per game on the ground, 310 yards per game on the ground for the Abernathy Antelopes. If that doesn't tell you what you're going to see Friday night, I'm not sure that anything else will. Although the two teams will do it a little bit different. Abernathy not afraid to spread it out a little bit. Post going to be more of a pack it in, and they just try and run over you type of offense. So far, Abernathy 124 yards a game through the air. That's important to note. Abernathy, obviously, they want to run the football first. They feel like that's their strength. But when you can keep teams honest by going and making big plays through the air, which Abernathy did really, really well against Wellington on Friday night, it just makes your offense that much harder to stop, and it makes your strength that much stronger when you can actually throw the ball as well, and teams have to have an eye on that as well. And so that's kind of an idea of what you're going to get offensively for the Abernathy Antelopes. Of course, we talk about him every week. You've got to quarterback Bryson Daly, the 4-year starter for the Abernathy Antelopes, pacing this Antelope offense. 256 yards of offensive production on average each Friday night for the Antelope signal caller. You've got him, the team's leading rusher, at 148 yards per contest, while also tossing it for 108 yards per game. So Bryson Daly, the offense most definitely runs through him, the biggest offensive weapon the Antelopes have. But wanted to talk this week kind of about a wide receiver tandem, if you will, for the Abernathy Antelopes. Nobody just overwhelmingly number-wise or stat-wise jumps off the page, but I tell you what, that's what's impressive, because multiple guys, when Abernathy does go to the air, kind of getting that job done. As you've got Jake Ayers, Nick Deonda, and Jess Hole, 3 guys that can do multiple things for you, that are just playmakers when they get the ball. You can swing it out to them on a screen, or even try and hit them over the middle in the flat, or Nick Deonda, a guy the Antelopes try and go deep to on occasion and look for the big play. But all 3 of those guys averaging in the neighborhood, in the ballpark of 40 yards receiving per game. And so there's not really kind of that one go-to guy, if you will, in that wide receiver rotation for the Abernathy Antelopes. And that's a huge strength, I think, for this Antelope team when Abernathy does go to the air, or even like you said, some of those screen passes and short dump-offs. Get it to guys like Ayers or like Hole. They can make plays in space and turn short gains into big-time plays for the Abernathy Antelope offense. So I'm excited to kind of see what they're going to do this coming Friday night. Could be a key for the Antelope successfully. Again, his Post has been really good at stopping the run, and so maybe Abernathy looks to go to the air a little bit and make some things happen. And then we talk about him every week. On the defensive side of the ball, Abernathy really, really good. We've talked about guys like Miles Keith up front. You've got Daly and Matthew Deonda at linebacker, one of the best linebacker duos you will see anywhere. But wanted to talk about a guy this week who's coming off of his best performance of the season. You've got senior safety Aaron Trevino. Trevino absolutely all over the field last Friday against Wellington. Had a team-high 9 tackles for the Abernathy Antelopes. So Trevino making a name for himself, looking to build on that solid performance against Wellington and bring that into Post. But man, a lot of guys doing some solid work for that Abernathy Antelope defense. Again, a defense that's only giving up 9 yards per contest. Really, really impressive for the Abernathy Antelopes. So that's kind of the tell of the tape for the Abernathy Antelopes. You know what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get from Post. And so again, not that it's worth much, but my keys to the game, if you will, come Friday night. They're nothing fancy. They're pretty simple, actually. You've got the two strengths of these teams going against one another. You've got an Abernathy Antelope rush defense. Can they slow down a dynamic rushing offensive attack, a solid rush offense attack of that of Post? Again, an offensive unit averaging 318 yards on the ground per game. Can Abernathy stop that? They proved that they did and they could against Wellington. Does Abernathy, do Antelope fans see a repeat performance of that, or can Post establish and sustain some drives? So keep an eye on that come Friday night. And then really, how does Abernathy respond? You know, you had an emotional win last week, 51-6, a game that saw lots of build-up coming into it. Everything that could go right for the Antelopes did go right last Friday night. And then throw in the distraction of homecoming and just some extracurricular things going on around this football program this week. Abernathy, will they avoid those distractions? Will they avoid a letdown? Again, something to keep an eye on coming up this Friday night when the Abernathy Antelopes and the Post Antelopes buck heads here from Abernathy's Antelope Field here in Abernathy, Texas. Again, Friday night, 7:30 the kick. We'll have the broadcast for you with a 7:15 pregame show as we get you ready for the Abernathy Antelopes and the Post Antelopes. I tell you what, it's getting to the fun time of the year. District ball right around the corner. Excited about that, but a couple more non-district tilts for you as Abernathy has Post this week, and then they're on the road in Littlefield next Friday night before having a week off and then beginning district play. I tell you what, coming up here in a couple weeks, we're going to have just a segment on the Abernathy pregame show where you can ask questions. I'll do my best to answer them. And so start sending those in, sending those to me, commenting on the Facebook page or on the YouTube videos. Send us your questions that you would like answered here on the Abernathy Antelope pregame show. Tell you what, guys, we're having a ton of fun doing this. Love talking Abernathy Antelope football. It's going to be a fun season. It's been awesome so far as the Abernathy Antelopes looking to go 4-0 come Friday night here against the Post Bold Gold Antelopes. Until then, this is Ty Horsford, voice of the Abernathy Antelopes, saying good night and God bless from a gorgeous Antelope Stadium here in Abernathy. We'll see you Friday night for homecoming, Antelope fans.